Hi, everyone. So,
Welcome.
welcome to today's live. In this conversation, we're going to be discussing the following points about memory reconsolidation. We'll be answering the questions: Am I lying to myself? Am I erasing the past? And am I disrespecting what really happened? We'll also go over the ethics of changing memory. Is it wrong to change memories? Um, we'll also do how we know that memories actually change physically in the brain, why reframing, insight, or taking the emotions out of a memory aren't enough for to create lasting transformation. We'll discuss healing versus denial. And finally, how do we know that we're actually changing memories and how do we know when it worked? So that's the schedule for today's chat.
Wow,
Steve,
that's a
you want to get a
mouthful.
word in?
That is a mouthful. We better dive in. So
Right.
to take us back up to the top, um, for people that have been starting to engage in this process, or just, the fact that, that notion, if the notion of changing memories is new to you, that obvious question, we've dealt with this a lot, with the clients we've worked with, am I lying to myself?
Right. So thank you, Steve. So first of all, um, this is a massive topic, and we're going to sort of take our time with breaking it down. Please let us know if you have any questions that we haven't answered, or you need clarification on anything. We do base everything on neuroscience, so if you want any of the science behind it, let us know. We'll share those links with you as well. So first of all, the question, am I lying to myself? Am I erasing the past? Let's go with, am I lying to myself, first of all? There's a very quick, simple answer to this, and it's the difference between the conscious mind and the unconscious part of the brain. So what we're doing is changing memories for the unconscious part of the brain, um, so that we're changing the data there while you can consciously still remember what originally happened. So it's no more lying to yourself than watching a movie is lying to yourself. So when you watch a movie, you consciously know that it's just a movie, but the unconscious part of your brain believes it's real, which is why you're feeling all the feelings. So as you watch a movie, the unconscious part of your brain is registering what you're watching, and then it's producing the same chemical state that would be produced if that was actually happening to you right now,
Mm.
which is why scary movies make you feel scared, even though you know it's just a movie. And it's that strong and that effective that you can sit there watching a movie about zombies, feeling frightened, saying to yourself, "There's zombies aren't real. There aren't really any zombies. This is just a movie. There's no actual zombies." And yet you still feel the fear. It doesn't change the fear. And that's because the unconscious part of your brain can't use logic or reason. So to the unconscious part of your brain doesn't know what a movie is. And so that's why. So what we're doing is we're changing the memories for the unconscious part of the brain, while the conscious part of while your conscious mind knows it's just a moose. So there is no fooling yourself or lying to yourself. Do you think that's answered that, Steve,
Yeah,
or
no, I think that's good, but maybe a next question or one that would seem to follow is, why engage in changing memories anyway? I mean, psychotherapy, being trained as a traditional psychotherapist, I was engaged in a lot of reframing things, that, we would work with memory, but everybody knows that it's not safe, not ethical. You can't change a memory, and they're cast in stone and concrete, and we're going to live under the tyrannical influence of these memories for the rest of our lives. So we all know this. Why are you why are you
right?
saying we should change memory?
Yes, yes. Very good question. Thank you for that. Yeah. So a couple of things here. First of all, memories can be changed, and in fact, not only can they be changed, they're changing all the time anyway.
How do
So
you know that?
the brain, the brain is constantly updating memories based on
Mm,
the information you had since the last time you recalled the memory. So the brain, and this is neuroscience has discovered this a while ago. So this is not new stuff.
mhm,
And you can look into memory reconsolidation, the neuroscience behind it, if for anybody who's interested in that. But very briefly, as we recall a memory, it's kind of like opening a file, and it can be changed. It's malleable at that point, and then you file the new version. And there are, this is why people, when you have a conversation with people and you all experience the same event, and everybody's got a different version of it, because in the first instance, everybody's perceived it differently. So the information has gone in differently, but also people's memories change.
mm.
I've got an excellent example of this. So when I was doing our book, and I know I've shared this before, but it's really relevant to this particular topic. Um, one of the opening chapter of the book, the first chapter in the book, I talk about sitting in front of a brick wall in my car, and then my phone rang. My phone on the passenger seat of the car rang. And as I was editing the book, during one of the many times of reading that scene, I realized that I was seeing in my mind, as I remembered that scene, that event happening, I was clearly seeing my phone on the passenger seat of the car next to me on my right ringing. And I suddenly realized it could not have been on my right. It had to have been on my left, because at the time that that event happened, I was living in England. And of course, the driver's seat is on the other side of the car. So it had to have been on my left, but my brain, because I'd been living in America for 5 years up to that point, my brain had, without my conscious knowledge, updated just that one piece of information. So that now, when I think of it, it's clearly on my right. If I hadn't, um, if I didn't have that kind of logic of it couldn't have been because I was in England, I would have sworn in court that it was on my right. Absolutely. And this has, this is a topic, because it's a very big topic, that is quite a controversial one as well, about eyewitness testimony not being reliable. And it's because our memories are malleable, they change all the time. Now, the key point here is that we want to do it deliberately. So memories are changing anyway. The only difference here is whether they're changing randomly on their own, or whether we are doing it intentionally to create the changes we want in our lives. Now, a very important piece here is that when I say you will consciously remember the original, while the unconscious part of your brain will be referring to the new memory, this is a perfect example, because I didn't change that memory on purpose. My brain just updated it automatically, the way the brain does. However, when we deliberately change a memory, as we are working on that memory, as we are deliberately changing that memory, we are also creating a new memory of changing the memory. So if I were to go, okay, I want to change that memory so that my phone is on the other side, I would then have a memory of changing that memory. So I would know consciously, yes, so it's explicit memory. In other words, I know. I know that I changed the memory to that. Therefore, I have the original memory consciously, but the unconscious part of my brain is referring to the new one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I just also wanted to add that when we think of memory, we oftentimes have this notion of it being a concrete thing. And I know you kind of launched into this saying it's like
Right,
opening up a file. It's like we
right.
think of it being this thing that's already there, and in reality, without going into
Mm,
the depth of this, that memory is
yes,
just located in all different parts of the brain. And when we think of have or when we have a memory, it is all of those bits and pieces coalescing to form
right.
what we know as a memory.
Right. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up as well. Yeah. So memories are not things; they are processes. So as you have, so the data is stored throughout the brain. There's no place in the brain. They're obviously not pictures or movies or anything like that. They are connections between neurons in the moment that we have that memory. So as I recall something, that's connections between neurons in my brain pulling together pieces of data like a jigsaw puzzle in the moment. So this is another reason why they can be changed, because the those pieces can be changed. Those, the way they connect can be changed, and that's of course what we do when using memory reconsolidation. We change the way those pieces are put together, or the pieces that are included. So does that help? Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic. So that's am I lying to myself? That answers that hopefully. But if not, let us know in the comments. The second question I have here is, am I erasing the past? So the answer to that is no. We can't go. We can't literally erase the past, and you're not even erasing the memory of the past. You're simply changing it from implicit memory to explicit memory, meaning it's no longer something that you know, as it's no longer something that the sorry, it's no longer something that the unconscious part of your brain is using as evidence of who you are. It is now just something you know from the past. So for example, if you know, implicit memory, just to recap what that is, if you look outside and you see it's raining, how do you know it's rain? How do you know it's not dangerous? How do you know it's wet? How do you know if you walk out into it, you'll get wet? These are things you just know because your brain is referring to implicit memory, unconscious memory. Um, whereas if I were to ask you, you know, some sort of information, I can't think of an example now, but you know, explicit memory is conscious information. I know this. Implicit memory is something I just know without thinking about it. So I know I gave a an example this morning when you and I were having this discussion.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember what it was. Oh, very important. Yes, I do. I do remember. So an example. An example. If I have a belief that I am a loser, right? So I believe I'm a loser. So, and anything that happens, if somebody criticizes my work, I feel very small, I feel deflated, and I feel like it's my fault. That, let's say that's my belief. Now, the, that's not just a random, that's not a random belief. It's not something I consciously choose to believe.
It's
And
not
it's
something
not
you showed
based,
up to the planet believing.
certainly, and it's not
Yeah.
based on nothing.
Yeah.
The reason I have that belief is because I have childhood memories that are implicit memory that are proving it. So when someone says something to me, someone criticizes my work, my brain is automatically, unconscious part of my brain is automatically referencing childhood implicit memories to go, okay, what does this
Example.
mean? Yeah, yeah, I'm going to give you an
Okay.
example now.
Yeah.
First
Yeah.
of all, I
Yep.
just want to say the
Sorry.
process. So my brain is referring to my childhood implicit memories to ask, what does this mean? Is it dangerous? What does it mean? And how do I respond? And that is all happening without my conscious awareness and before I even become aware of what that person said. Before I even consciously register
Hmm.
what that person said, it's automatic, it's quick, it's behind the scenes. So, for example, let's say the particular childhood memories that are at the root of this belief that I'm a loser are about being bullied in school. So, as this person says what they say, my brain refers to the fact that I am whatever those bullying memories mean to me.
Hmm.
And then it's triggering stress chemicals that create the feeling of I'm small, it's my fault, I'm a loser, and all of that. Now, if I, so this is a very important piece I want to do, I want to make here, because the point I want to make here, because a lot of people go, okay, well, we just reframe it, change the meaning, or take out
Hmm.
the emotion. So let's take a look at that. If we were to just reframe the memory, that involves conscious logic, right? So then I would say, okay, well, let's say In that memory where I was being bullied, the truth is I was amazing. I was really clever, and those people were just jealous. And that's why they were behaving like that. Now, that seems to make logical sense, right? So you'd think that that would work, but it doesn't. And here's why: because that's my conscious mind using logic. So this is what happens consciously. I think, okay, I'm changing that memory to where I now understand that they were jealous, and in fact it means I was a winner, not a loser. Let's simplify it to that. So I do that. I think, right, I've changed that memory. Then I move forward in my day. Somebody criticizes my work again. Now, my brain, I'm thinking consciously. So first of all, the conscious mind is way behind. So by the time I really register what they've said, all of this behind the scenes stuff has already happened. It's too late. But let's say I go ahead and try anyway. So they say their thing, and they say what they say, and I think, oh yes, so now I remember it's because I'm clever. So that memory of my childhood, they were just jealous. So I'm not stupid. I'm not a loser. It's not my fault, and so on. By the time I have done that, the stress chemicals are already in my system. I've already responded and reacted because the unconscious part of my brain is still referring to the fact that I was bullied. And the unconscious part of the brain cannot use logic or reason. So the unconscious part of the brain does not have the ability to look at that memory and go, it's because they were jealous. All the unconscious, it's cause and effect. The unconscious part of my brain looks at that memory and goes, I was bullied, therefore I am a loser, and let's move forward with the loser bit. So that's why we literally have to change the actual events, the actual data, not just the emotions, and certainly not just the meaning. So hopefully that's explained that side, that part of it, because that's such a big um, misunderstanding.
I think, using that analogy of a GPS, uh, right here may be helpful as well. That as we're doing this work in other modalities, we're reframing, we are forgiving, I can be in that place of I can
Understanding.
forgive my bullies. I understand that, they had a terrible childhood themselves, blah, blah, blah. All of that is happening kind of like you as the driver in the car making a conscious choice to go in a different direction. It's like,
Hmm.
clearly, I want to go in a different direction. I am going to California. I am going to
Hmm.
California. And you
Yeah,
are excited about moving in that direction. However, the GPS is still set to an old coordinate. As a matter of fact, it's set to down the street, when the last time you went to the grocery store or whatever, and it
hmm,
doesn't know. And it's giving
exactly.
you that messaging, and it's trying to return you back to what it knows to be the proof. The proof is no, the coordinates say
That's right.
we're
Yes,
going to the store.
exactly. Exactly. That's a great example. Thank you, Steve. And then to look at the emotional side of it. So now let's say some people go, oh well, you just need to take the emotions out so that it's not emotional learning and that kind of thing. The same thing happens if you take the emotions out, the data is still there. So here's an example I came up with when we were having this discussion this morning. If, let's say, I have an old phone number, I have a phone number that was my mother's, so it's got sentimental value. I sort of put, how do we add the emotion? So let's say sentimental value. My phone number, my old phone number, has sentimental value, but I need to get a new phone. I need to learn my new phone number, so that when someone says, "What's your phone number?" it's the new phone number that comes to mind. But I've got emotional attachment to this old phone number because it used to be my mother's. So let's say I go, okay, let's take the emotion out of it. So I think, okay, so instead of, holding on to this phone number because it's my mother's, I'm going to replace that, move that emotion to lovely memories of her and photos and that kind of thing. So the phone number no longer means anything emotionally. Now that's where a lot of people stop. But if someone's then at that point says to me, "What's your phone number?" I'm still going to give the old phone number because I haven't learnt the new phone number yet. So that data has to change. So, sure, the emotions need to be brought down because otherwise I certainly won't want to change that phone number or I won't be able to. But once the emotions have been, brought down, I still need to change the actual digits of that phone number so that when someone says to me, "What's your phone number?" I give the new one, not the old one. So, in the same way, I can bring down the emotions in the negative memories, but I still need to change the data because otherwise, so like the bullying memory, I can bring down the emotion so it's no longer triggering, it no longer has any emotional meaning. But unless if I'm still being bullied in those memories, the unconscious part of my brain still refers to the fact that that's who I am. And that's what it means I'm a loser or whatever those emotions are. So now I hear you ask, because you asked this when we were having the conversation this morning, how do we know? How do we know that an implicit memory has changed? And this is how we know. So using the same example, the next time, so let's say I have changed those bullying memories to where now instead of being bullied, I'm the most popular kid in school. So that's how dramatic that change needs to be. Now consciously, I still know that I was bullied because I have a new memory of changing that memory. So explicit memory, I consciously know that I changed that memory and what it used to be. The unconscious part of my brain is referring to the implicit memory, the new memory that I was the most popular kid in school. So now, as I go about my day, someone criticizes my work, and the way I know that memory changed is because I don't have to think about my response. My automatic response is, it's okay. It's either it's okay or I go, oh yeah, I'll just fix that, or I explain it, but there's no reaction, there's no emotional trigger, there's no I certainly don't feel like a loser. I don't feel like a loser, I don't shrink. I have a very different, but here's the key, automatic response.
Mm,
And
mm,
this is how you can tell, because if I have to think about it, if I have to think, oh yes, I am clever, or they mean well, if I have to logic it in any way, then that implicit memory still has not been changed, because the implicit
mhm.
memory is what gives me the immediate automatic response before I consciously become aware of it. So I know one of the example. Oh, sorry, but I just
Nope,
want to
nope,
add this
nope.
piece because I'm remembering bits and pieces I was saying this morning. And here's one. The thing is that if we did not have implicit memory, we wouldn't still be here. Or rather, no, let me rephrase that. If the unconscious part of our brains used logic or listened to logic, could process logic, we would be extinct because it takes too long. So the conscious mind figures things out, gives reasons, thinks about it, and uses logic and reason. By the time we've done that, we're dead. So it's the unconscious part of the brain not using logic, just using cause and effect instinct instantly is
Mm,
what keeps us alive. So as we're walking along, by the time we consciously hear the rustle in the grass, the the unconscious part of the brain has already registered it, assessed it, and reacted before we finally consciously, oh, there's a rustle in the grass. So this is so crucial. So what's actually physically happening in the brain is that rustle in the grass went in the back of the brain first, the survival part.
mm.
before the conscious mind finally caught up and went, oh, it's a rustle in the grass. So that's why our reaction is instant, and that's for survival. In the same way, that happens with everything. That happens with everything. That happens if you see someone's expression on a face, or someone says something, or you see, or you think about yourself, or you think about money, or you think about your relationship. The reactions are happening by the time you become consciously aware of it. It's all over. It's all happened. The chemicals are in your system, and that is why making conscious changes only is not enough, because you're too late. So it's the unconscious part of the brain that is important, and those implicit memories. Sorry, do go ahead.
No, I was
Get
just
away.
going to throw in a bit of a, personal story regarding a bullying example, and how that played out in my life, having experienced that in junior high school, and it was pretty severe and it was pretty traumatic, and I carried the trauma or the feeling of that, for
Mm.
decades into my life. And it's like consciously I knew how that was it was having an impact in on my life. I spent lots of time and effort in therapy and other modalities trying to change that uh, that episode, that chapter in my life. But it wasn't until we actually did the work to change the information of what happened in that bullying chapter of my life that it actually made that shift and change. So it's this interesting dynamic when we're doing this work. It's the interesting dynamic of knowing consciously what happened. So we're not erasing any of that. We know what happened to us, but by changing the data of that memory, and it's like learning the new telephone number, and we're installing that new information, that new data, and then the lived experience of knowing that my body is no longer going to the old data, that when it goes to this new data, this new information, and the new information that I gave it was of feeling of being able to take care of myself, of feeling um, capable, strong in that situation. When I was triggered by situations in my life that in one way or another felt like the old bullying
Mm.
experience, being bullied by life experiences, I would just naturally fall into that old pattern of feeling small and terrorized. Now, like you said, the proof is in that lived experience of I don't feel that way anymore. And it's like, huh, so, it's that's the proof in
Yes.
doing this work is knowing that I am my system, my unconscious system is no longer referring to the old evidence that left me feeling a particular way. I'm now feeling, I'm accessing different neurochemistry. My life is feeling different in the moment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. That's such a great example, definitely. And I wanted to come back to, because I know I got ahead a little bit there. I wanted to come back to the question of ethics, and is it wrong to change memories? I do want to be very clear in answering that question. So, what we've said up to now is part of that answer, is probably the main part of that answer, in that we are we can still consciously remember what originally happened. So it's it's not that it's wrong to change it, because then we'll think something different happened. The only time that will happen is if we didn't consciously change it. And that's why we don't change clients' memories. We guide our clients in changing their own memories to whatever they want to change them to. So, therefore, each person is in complete control, number one, of what they change and what they change it to. And number two, they know they changed it. So they have the information of the original, and as well as the new one. So that's why the ethical thing would only come into play if practitioner was changing a client's memories without their knowledge. Then you've got an ethics problem, absolutely, of course. But changing your own memories, there's no ethics involved because it's all you. It's all just you. Number one. Number two, we're not getting in a time machine, going back in time and physically changing anything. What we are changing, and we're not involving any other people, what we are changing is literally just the pattern in which our neurons are firing. That is it. We are literally just changing
Mhm.
how the neurons are firing in the brain. We're not changing people, we're not changing things or events or anything else, just neural network activity. So, and just like you would change a phone number. So then the question is it wrong to change your phone number? Is it wrong to memorize your new phone number? Well, no, because you need the new phone number and the old phone number is not serving you anymore. In the same way, changing negative childhood memories is you're updating the information to what you want, your next destination. So if the old childhood memories prove you're a loser, and you don't want to be a loser right now, then you need to update those memories. So that is not only is it not wrong, it is the thing to do if you want to move forward, if you want to change anything. That is the way to create um, lasting change. So was that all I had to say? I've lost my
Well,
track, actually.
yeah, while you, check in with that for just a moment, I what I would say is, I would underscore, yes, this is the most empowering work that we can be engaged in. I liked what you said about the fact that, these, you know, uh, only go ahead and change these memories if you feel like the memories that you're holding on to from the past are not serving you anymore. And for
Hmm.
most of us, recognizing that the memories that we're holding on to really did, in fact, form our core beliefs about who we are and how the world works. And,
Hmm.
recognizing if what I'm holding about myself, the beliefs that I'm holding about myself are no longer working, then the work
Hmm.
that we have to do is to go back and to change what our unconscious is drawing from in order to keep moving forward.
Right, and thank you for mentioning that because this also brings me to another point that I don't have in my notes, but I do want to say this
Mm, mm,
is that, a lot of people go, well, if I were to go back in time, I wouldn't change anything.
mm,
I wouldn't change my bad childhood or the bad things that happened because it's what made me who I am today.
mm,
It's true, absolutely true that that is what made you who you are today. However, you didn't get your strength or your value from the bad stuff. You are as strong as you are and as amazing as you are, despite the bad stuff, not because of it. And this is such an important point as well. This could probably be a whole other video on its own. But it is so important to recognize that you are, imagine how amazing you would be, how strong you would be if you had had the support that you should have had, the love that you should have had, the safety that you should have had. Imagine what you could have achieved with that. And here's, I think, an analogy that I think works really well is, because I've had this argument with people in the past, or this debate with people in the past about, tough things make you stronger.
mm,
Your life being tough makes you stronger. No, it doesn't. You're strong despite it. And
mm,
here's what I mean by that. Children, if you want to grow an apple tree, you don't make that apple tree strong by kicking around the sapling and not watering it you nurture it, you water it, you give it everything it needs, you protect it while it's growing. And then once it's a tree, then it's strong and it can withstand, well, then you can kick it as much as you like. So the point is that children are like that sapling. You protect, you give them everything they need, the security, the support, because they are growing. And the more support and love and kindness and compassion and the safer they feel, the stronger they are able to grow because they can get on with growing instead of trying to develop coping skills and survival mechanisms, which all distract from actually growing at foundational strength. Then that child has everything they need as an adult. But so the point of saying that is if you could go back in time to where you were a child and change your childhood and give that little you the childhood they should have had, all of the love and kindness and compassion and safety and respect and support and everything they needed, would you choose to do it? And this is where some people go, no, I wouldn't, because that's what made me strong. But now knowing that that's not what made you strong. You became strong despite all of that. So, how amazing are you? You're even more amazing than you thought because you managed to get to wherever you are now despite that, not because of it. And therefore, the answer, hopefully, is yes, absolutely. I would go back in time. If I could go back in time, I would give myself that ideal childhood so that I could become, so that I could live up to my full potential, which must be even better than what I've achieved so far. And then, if that's the answer, the great news is, although we can't physically go back in time in a time machine, you can effectively give that little you the childhood you should have had by changing those implicit childhood memories. And the reason it works is because while you consciously know what originally happened, the unconscious part of your brain, the child in you, can't tell the difference. Can't tell the difference between reality and imagination, can't use logic or reason, and can't judge something as unrealistic. So, that part of you, the part of you that matters, the part of you that decides who you are and how to respond in the world and what you're capable of and what seems like a good idea and what doesn't, your judgment, your patterns, your habits, your relationships, your automatic responses to everything, that part of you will believe the new memories. So it's as if you have been able to go back in time and give that little you the childhood they should have had, while you'll still consciously know what originally happened. So I hope that makes sense. But let us know, of course, if you need any clarification.
Absolutely. I think it's been a really in-depth uh, discussion. I believe you're right. We could probably have broken this down into a series, um, and likely will get a little bit more granular with some of this information. But just kind of bringing it back and looking at that notion of um, am I lying to myself? Is this uh, is the does this work really have a significant impact and a difference? And I'm hoping that this conversation provided a few more data points for that. And if you are feeling like you would like a little bit more of an explanation, I know that we've got information down in the description. If you feel
Yes.
like you're engaged in doing some of this work and you need a bit of help with actually going through this process of creating new implicit memory, there's information for getting a bit of
Yes.
extra help also in the description.
Yes,
So
so in the description is also a link to a playlist of live demonstrations of this process. So you can see, and there's lots of different people, different topics and issues, and different ways of getting to those changes. So do check that out as well. Oh, and there's a link to a list of our certified practitioners as well if you need help. All right. So I think, oh, and a list and a link to the science as well. So check the description. There's a lot of links in there. A lot of resources. All right. So we will see, and let us know what other topics you'd like us to cover. If you'd like us to take a deeper dive into any of what we discussed today, if you have any questions or need clarification on any of it. All right. Lots of love to all of you. We'll see you
Have a
next
great
time.
week.